Hello, hello. One, two, three, one, two. So I don't see a link here, which is kind of weird. So we have a stream going on, but no link I can share. But maybe I can find the link here. Analytics, view, and leave control. What the fuck? No link. So I can link to. Uh, so apparently, instead of giving a link to the live stream, we have to give a link to me as my channel or something. Mhm. So here we have it in my channel. Okay, so maybe it will work now. Some feedback about this. So I want to practice live streaming, and we see a lot of text here. And a problem with pasting a lot of text at once is maybe that it's hard to get feedback. And in fact, I think the best way to get feedback are good old one-on-ones. So there is this book, Qualitative Interviewing, for example. Uh, and if you have a team, one thing you need to work on is channels of communications with it. Uh, and sometimes you need to go all the way deep into speaking with a person. So there is this umbrella, like when we are going through the chats, but we are missing a lot. We are missing a lot when we are only doing the public speaking because uh, uh, there is a barrier people would not cross in public. So you operate in the unknown. If you only do public, you operate in the unknown. You don't know who are working who you are working with most of the time. Uh, so if we having a team, building a team, working in a team, maybe it is a flexible team, like people come and go, like in the open source. But if there is something that looks like a team, like in duck typing, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then we might want to go deep now and then and talk with people. And it is a skill, it is an art. We can learn about it from books, even like this book, Learning from Strangers by Wyss. Uh, and this is also true about soliciting feedback. So, posting this wall of text is cool, but if we want the actual feedback, uh, we might want them to go to specific people and talk with them. Uh, and not even about this, but talk with them like in a form of free associations with about a bit of guidance. Uh, but first we need to establish this back and forth, establish this channel of communication. We cannot use this channel of communication before it is opened, and opening it needs some processing, some tuning in. Um, so So having this live stream allows me to kind of work around the lack of such channels and give some feedback in case such feedback is needed. And I've been in a similar position before, posting walls of text somewhere, and I often wanted some feedback, wanted to see how people read my text, what they think, what they feel. So I kind of providing this feedback in case it will be useful, but feel free to ignore it, of course, if this isn't something you actively wanted to see and to find. Uh, so here, Mark congratulates Mimiza. I hope to find this moment where he congratulates people on contributing. To shout out Mihilanda, who took initiative like Mimiza did, and figured out how to rewrite all of Sia. So it is a personal shout out, in this private channel on Discord. And what we see later, I copied it into my notes. So what we see is this law of rule of finals, power law, where Mark mentions that of people who start the repository only few would join the Discord channel, and it makes sense because joining a channel means that you will be exposed to some chatter. The channel has to compete with other channels in this bar, and you will be exposed to notifications. Maybe you will disable them, but if you disable notifications, then why to join? Uh, so maybe you expect to go into this channel periodically, and it means you are allocating your future time into this Discord subscription. So indeed, a lot of people will skip Discord and simply start this on GitHub. Maybe skim the docs. Maybe they will pull the repository and play with running some code. Maybe some people would actually join the Discord channel simply to look what is inside, to gauge how people interact, but then would simply forget about this channel and it will go down in this list. They will never visit it again. This is also a possibility. And I want to see this green dot, and I want to check my audio, yeah, audio works. Uh, so keeping this shut out is cool, but um, what I've been playing with lately is making such contributions more visible on the surface. So when you come into a project like GAN, what you see on the surface of it, you see some videos with some video conferencing, some text, Patreons. GAN was created by Mark Nadal. Designed by Mark Nadal with the GAN team and many amazing contributors. So what and I thought of it yesterday and today, kind of something I'm actively playing with. And by the way, this is related to mapping. This all comes as a development of my idea of maps is that we have goals. And goals shows how people contribute to the code or to the text files, to documentation. And it is much fancier. And some kinds of information need a lot of parsing. For example, it took me some time to find this hail, right? And it took me even more time to process it. Uh, so it needs a lot of parsing, and the more, the harder it is to parse, the less fluent we feel about it. So there is a joy, there is a pleasure in when things are working. There was a study, for example, that showed that when we read a text, if our brain can predict what the writer will write, predict the next word, and the word after that, and so on, then we feel fluent while reading this text. We surf through this text. Uh, Maybe there is this connection with the author uh, that we also feel, and it spells, it translates into pleasure. We enjoy reading the text when our brain can predict what will come next. And there was a similar study with names. So shorter to pronounce, easier to pronounce names elicit more positive emotional disposition towards that person from simply a name, a short name, tunes us towards feeling positive about this person. And the long, hard to pronounce, hard to write name uh, makes us not as comfortable around them. So on some level, brain tries to optimize things to simplify and it values those kind of information that we can simply watch and see, oh, this person is contributing to. Uh, and we can put this right here on the surface. This is something I will be working soon. Generating such things and putting them on the surface, we can. Uh, so here we can only embed GIF files. Uh, so I wouldn't embed the entire history of GAN on the README, but the latest commit, for example, commits that were coming over the last month, they can produce a short video that we can put right there, and it will be automatically updating, and people will see contributions. And uh, this fancy way of representing information, and I think it relates closely to benchmarks. Benchmarks are not, to a large degree, they are not about numbers. They are about graphics, about fancy representations. They work not just for people who are visiting the site. They work also for us, the contributors. When we see that, oh, here we are on this picture, on this graphics, here we contributing to the stuff. It works for us maybe even better than some mention in some Discord chat. This mention is here now, but I will scroll a bit. No, there is no longer mention. I look at, I see no mention. It's gone. It's lost forever in the balls on Discord history. But here, if you put it here, then my contribution it's kind of shines. It shines. So this is one thought about it. So instead of simply mentioning people in chats, we can maybe improve this and mention them on the surface and dynamically in a fancy way. For example, I like very much this other tool uh, by the author of Gors, Logstalgia, where requests to web server are represented as a kind of a ping pong game, right? Would be super cool to implement something like this in JavaScript, in observable, with maybe WebGL, maybe not, and to see the contributions of Mimiza, of Mnehandler, of Giraffe, and other people see them on such a chart like music. It's I can't help but make the connection to music in how this is represented. It's uh, I'm only looking at this, but the association is strong in my brain with how music is visualize it. So it feels like watching music, like hearing music, looking at this chart, at this graphics, and this is the graphics. This is a benchmark. This isn't some weird videos. This isn't some video. It's actually a very cool benchmark, very powerful benchmark. Uh, but why benchmarks are powerful? Maybe it's a different subject. So what else is governance? Governance. People did not ask. Governance, environment, bullshit, and power plays. Gonna project. So what I'm seeing here is some kind of inner conflict because in one paragraph, Marx says that that without no governance, insanely cool. But later we see something about drawing lines, right? Later we see something about drawing. We'll see something about drawing lines. So it might not be obvious from this text, but I think this text kind of puts the opposites, and there might be a hidden question in this text. How do you work with these opposites? But the question isn't isn't there. There is no question mark, and I ask myself why there is no question mark. This isn't thought through, so I don't see a good system of thought, good. Um, so it isn't a teaching. Mark, I don't see there is. I don't see any value that would teach me something about governance or no governance here. It's just a raw opposites, raw impressions about the opposites. But I also see no desire to learn from the audience. Uh, no question marks, no engagement with the public. Maybe something hidden that I don't see. Maybe something is happening that I don't see. Maybe Mark is talking with someone. But from my layman's perspective, uh, it's kind of vague. It's kind of vague what this text is trying to accomplish. Is it putting forth something to discuss, or is it trying to teach us something, or is it just some random notes? Uh, so maybe Marco just was in a good mood and went online and typed something and then went away. And maybe because he was such in a good mood, he just ran away doing something else. but left me kind of confused about what to do with all this. But it's okay, super cool that I can now practice this live streaming. But but yeah, my hypothesis would be that there is some unresolved question that leaks through these nodes about governance or no governance, to draw lines or not to draw lines, and how to draw them, and what to do about leadership, what are the functions of a leader in this environment. But then again, I want to reiterate that simply putting these nodes here, it creates a problem that uh, it is a lot of text, and people would not want to add to this text here below. So I wouldn't, this is why I created a live stream, because I wouldn't want to add some text here, because it is a competition. And competition isn't just about money. Toxicity also isn't about money. In fact, text is inherently toxic, because text only uses a part of our social consciousness. Uh, we can, of course, try to work around it, but basically, some people would simply be bothered by all this text. And if we continue this discussion here, it's the law of the power rule will work again with this. The more we continue this conversation, the less people will be able to participate. And the majority of people will treat it as noise, and they will have this association formed in their brain that this channel is a source of noise. This is something I skip. And the more we do this, the more irrelevant this channel will become. So knowing this intuitively, we avoid making large conversations here in public. So if we wanted to actually solve some uh, problems like the problem of governance, then a public channel, uh, it needs to be structured better. There should be a very a small question, and maybe a separate channel with a pointer. So I'm starting discussion on this subject in this separate channel here, or maybe just a thought. I'm not saying this should be done exactly this way, but what I'm saying is simply throwing these thoughts here puts a very high watermark, a very high barrier of entry for people to react, because nobody wants to make this wall of text even higher. So maybe it is intentional. So Mark puts all those text here in order to filter out. Uh, so only bold people would go and add to this wall of text. But and people maybe only people who think that the contribution is superb, they will go and add something. So it might be an intentional way of filtering, uh, but if we simply want to gather ideas from people, then a different format might work better. So, by the way, some of Mark's articles on Hacker Noon, I think, they have this option to comment on a paragraph. Nobody uses it. It looks like nobody uses this functionality, but it also mm, so this again again a bit about benchmarks. So what are we getting of contributing to this discussion? There isn't even a question. We see a wall of text, but no question marks, no questions addressed to the reader. So uh, I wouldn't even know if. So I know from my own history, from making my own connections, that feedback, some people would want to hear some feedback on this, but it isn't obvious, right? And so it's under doubt, and even I doubt that my feedback is necessary. I have so basically I'm making this live stream not because I think feedback will be useful or needed or wanted. In fact, I prefer when facing such a doubt, I prefer to think that screw it, my feedback is not necessary. I'm very conservative on this. If a person asks me personally, then I think, okay, my feedback may be needed. Otherwise, I think that I would rather spend my time elsewhere. So I'm actually doing this because I practice live streaming, right? So it's just a lucky coincidence for me to have to making this feedback. Uh, and Again, why I think about inner conflict here? Because Mark is frustrated a lot. He often mentions how how he is behind in unit test, in merging forks, uh, in this and that, in that. So I see a lot of frustration, like there is a writer's block. So writers, they sometimes have a writer's block, and they want to write. They feel how ideas are brewing, but they have also some uh, force that prevents them from uh, sitting behind a typewriter and typing their stuff. So this text, it feels to me like Mark have this frustration uh, about his how would we call it? It's not a writer's block, but maybe a developer's block. I don't know. Some frustration about his block, and he might be compensating by going there and doing something, writing, sharing his ideas, and making at least a little step. And this is also about benchmarks. So he did this little step, cool. But this step, it doesn't go into commits. It doesn't go anywhere. Uh, there is no benchmarks that back that back this effort, that makes this effort worthwhile. Uh, and I might lose any accidental reader watchers here, but I think such benchmarks to a large degree fool the open source development. And later Mark talks about money, uh, but recognition uh, and benchmarks provided by open source tools. So let me show you again what benchmarks we have here. Mark, so this is a benchmark. This list of commits is a benchmark. We see that Mark has committed yesterday. He merged the pull request. This is a benchmark. Everyone can see if they want to that he did something. It's on the surface. It's information, and then GitHub goes even further and gives us another benchmark. This is also a benchmark. Uh, so this is money. I would argue that this is money, another kind of money, and money of benchmark money, like benchmark coin. uh, so one thing I'm trying to do now is to uh, include such pondering. A lot of work isn't happening in the code, it's happening in the design. In Rust ecosystem, for example, we have RPC. And a lot of Rust projects are making such RPCs, request for comments. It started in Rust, but then a lot of other projects that are close to the Rust ecosystems adopted this practice of making a request for comments. And why? Because it is a kind of a benchmark. Instead of simply writing something in a chat, they create a public text on which people can comment, and then these comments lead to changes in the text, observable changes in the text. So you have the RPC text, people comment on it, and then we have patches that address this comment, improving the text, improving the idea. The text is alive, but also observable. We can see how it improves, and this is also all a benchmark. It is all a very cool benchmark of how people contribute to the design. And in fact, GitHub it gives us this. It benchmarks our contribution on this graph, right? So if someone like does a lot of reviews or creates issues, I think they should include comments here, but maybe they do somehow. But so it's all it's benchmark economics. Economics of and it's a lot about gamification. Later, Marx talks about games, but we are already in a game. Open source development is a game because we have all those high scores, benchmarks. It's all gamification happening for years and years. Mm. the rewrite keeps getting delayed. Truly blame, but I still take responsibility. So again, this text is a lot about Mark guilt. He feels some inner conflict, some guilt, some frustration, and it leaks into this text. And I'm not sure again what to do about it because uh, because we have a huge lack of synchronization here. Why would he feel guilty of all things? Where is this guilt is coming from? Maybe maybe there is something very maybe there is something that can be organized very differently in how the motivational stream goes for him in order to not to use all this guilt but rather work around it. I mean the existing guilt can be used, but the motivational stream can be organized such that the guilt is not full, that the motivation goes around the guilt and into other emotional subsystems. So, and this is a classic procrastination, by the way. The more we feel the guilt, the harder it is for us to approach whatever we are trying to approach. So maybe we are working on a thesis and we feel this anxiety uh, of having a limited time and having no prediction on how close we are to writing this to finishing this thesis. And anxiety is one of the emotions. In fact, on Panksepp's map, I would say it lives somewhere in the fear and anger, fear and rage networks, affective networks. Anxiety is one of those emotions that are designed to keep us away from something. So if we think about mm, um, going to a gym, but anxious because in a gym we'll be boxing and be getting getting hit on the face. Uh, then this anxiety tells us, don't go into gym because you don't want to be hit in the face. Don't go into gym. Anxiety uh, basically tell us not to do something. And when anxiety is attached, for example, it can be stemming from guilt. So guilt from being late on something uh, translates into anxiety, and anxiety attached to this project means that it's very hard to approach this project, to work on it. So it's a tangible force that pushes the developer, pushes the writer, or whoever it is, push them away from the project they're working on. So uh, it might be possible to use anxiety differently, to reverse it, but it needs some techniques, like a person who needs to know how to do this, and it's a skill. Reversing anxiety, reversing fear, it's a skill that might be developed. But by default, we do not want such emotions linked to a project if we want this project to flourish. All right. So I take responsibility. Why in psychology we say that taking responsibility is good? Because it helps people. It helps a person to process this, to go further in solving this problem. So taking responsibility is not a goal in itself. Taking responsibility is necessary in order for a person to start doing something about it. So uh, Mark recognizes that he feels guilty, that he blames the year, he blames himself by taking responsibility. Recognizing this in a first step for doing something about it, for working around this anxiety, or learning how to reverse it. Uh, it wouldn't do just to keep blaming oneself and stay there. It's something that needs to be brought further until all this guilt is processed and we are happy again. Processed and maybe used, utilized. So management comes in because make sure that there is a healthy sustainability. So there is a kind of jump in logic here because uh, Marx says that that management. So if there is a manager, uh, so I want to see my hand movements. If there is a management like here and Mark here, then this management can use the leverage of his high authority uh, to influence Mark, uh, and the manager can help Mark to process and use the guilt. And indeed, there is difference between management and leadership. Uh, these terms are not interchangeable. Most of the time, we prefer to use the term leadership uh, when we work in agile, lean, Toyota production system, uh, systems that are focused on developing self-organizing teams. And management is the other branch which focuses more on directing the teams from above. So it's below and above. Leadership is about making self-organizing teams, and leadership is about organizing teams from above. It's kind of opposite vectors, and we need some of both. Actually, I like to quote Ginnett on it. Uh, but what Mark is talking here maybe is that if there is a manager and there is Mark, then manager can make Mark use this guilt effectively and process it and kind of kick him in the ass and make him do the work. And uh, indeed, also management is very good. This other branch, so there is leadership and there is management. The management branch is very good at utilizing the guilt and using the guilt, and often the motivational stream in management uh, goes through the guilt. The guilt is included in this loop, uh, and in the leadership branch, it is the other way. We try to avoid the guilt, um, because we want people to be able to. So guilt is something that manager can use to manipulate us into working. But if we want a self-organizing team uh, that guilt will do the opposite. The opposite. It will prevent people from approaching the project uh, unless the person can kind of have this skill of being a manager of himself. So manager and Mark, they can merge, and Mark can be his own manager. But it's a very fine skill of being one's own manager. It's a very fine level of managing states and the relationships between them, the states. Um, on the other hand, everyone has a parent and a state, kind of inbuilt, a manager built in by design. But the jump in logic here is that suddenly we are talking about Mark being a manager of the team. So there is a jump in logic. At one moment, Mark talks about his own problems and how a manager would help him, and then suddenly uh, he thinks about whether he should be a manager of the team. So maybe he transfers some of his experience to the team and thinking that team might be going through similar problems, through similar uh, guilt, through similar lack of motivational stream. I don't know, and he thinks that maybe by being manager, by allocating more time to being a manager, he might somehow help the team. Maybe this is his idea here. Uh, so then he goes on to ponder why people would work on GAN despite it lacking governance and management. And so people might work because simply the project the product is good, right? And he shares his hope, which is kind of a way to build even more anxiety. And so making promises, making public promises like this. So I'm hoping I can get things working. It's not 100% a promise, but it's kind of sharing plans. And publicly sharing plans, I've been playing a lot with this. Uh, it's good when you can manage your anxiety very well because you're building kind of expectations, external expectations that you're putting against yourself. If you can manage this uh, energy of expectations, then good for you. But I prefer I prefer uh, to be very careful about promising anything or uh, sharing plans because I find that there is less anxiety. So there is this motto: undersell and over deliver. And it isn't a silver bullet, this motto, but I find it helping with working from less anxiety motivational loop. Because having promised something, we now have this worry about whether we will reach, whether we will be true to our promise. And this is a problem of identity, which, by the way, triggers self-defense mechanism. So uh, if we promise something, we are putting our identity outside, a part of our identity outside. Uh, and when this part is challenged, it typically triggers defense mechanisms, which are very funny, very funny. It then becomes a question of whether we can change our word or back on our word, whether we can let uh, uh, so it's a bit like persisting identity. We are putting a promise out there. Maybe nobody care, nobody cares, and nobody remembers what it is that we said, but we remember, and we have placed it. It's like in Harry Potter, when Voldemort he takes his soul and makes a persistent storage for it in different items. Uh, when we put a promise out like this, so I hope I will work in the next year on this one. It's a bit like taking a piece of a soul and putting it outside in an atom that maybe is forgotten somewhere, but we know it isn't there anymore. It is somewhere outside. And so sometimes we need to destroy this external item or to destroy the connection between ourselves, sacrifice this connection in order to get back our soul. So mine here, I might be blunt, but money is a scapegoat here. A scapegoat. It isn't money that corrupts teams. No. Take away money, make an economy that is not based on money. Teams will still be corrupting themselves. It's not about money at all. Money is just a convenient representation of social engagements, and these social engagements they will transcend money. Whatever you do with money, the teams will still be able to corrupt as well as they did before. Mm. And some people will get greedy because a person has a seeking affective network. If it is hyperactive, then a person will be greedy and will be collecting stuff. It's just a matter of utilizing this network efficiently or using a kind of a sound equalizer to make other systems active. It's not about money at all. Take away money, people will still be collecting things. This effective network was created long before money was ever invented, I think. So Discord reminds me that it's time to go, time to finish this stream maybe. Um, I hope we touched on some interesting subjects. And actually, no, actually, I don't care if we touched or not. It's simply good practice to go out. It's a kind of exposure therapy. Actually, I recommend it to anyone to go out and live stream and share your thoughts with the universe. Uh, because uh, well, I can go for some time about why this works. I have some theories and hypotheses here, but uh, I probably shouldn't. But the idea is that this is a very good form of exposure therapy and sharing your thoughts and uh, testing your boundaries and pushing against your boundaries through live streaming uh, creates a larger space of freedom for us, makes us more free and creative.